Hello folks, right now you're looking at my Windows desktop with a bunch of things open. What I'm doing right now is compiling the course and plugins pack here. It will have the sample packs for it, and it also has the plugins, and it comes to just under 3 gigabytes actually of stuff for you. But I want to tell you where to put them, which is something you either have to figure out on your own or you can have a very handy lesson from me. So these are all 32-bit plugins. If you know about the difference between 32-bit and 64-bit in programs, it's just the amount of memory you can handle. So 32-bit is still relevant, especially for VSTs. But yeah, these are all 32-bit. It's better if they're 64-bit if you have a 64 system, but it still works just fine. So what you have to do for 32-bit plugins, and it even finds 64-bit plugins in this folder, but you go to Program Files, and then you got to go to Steinberg VST plugins. Seems a bit random, but Steinberg made VST plugins folder. So yeah. Anyway, what you do, you get DLL.dll. It's application extension, right? And this just runs as its own thing, right? Some of them need a picture to be with them. This is the interface for Dillset. But others, most can just kind of be plopped in. They have a picture contained within the code. So what you do is you just click and drag into here. But there's another place too. You can either put it in VST plugins here, or there's another folder here, Steinberg VST plugins, 64-bit plugins. And these usually contain like first-party sort of software, like iZotope things and FL Studio, whatever, like in-house VSTs. In-house VSTs or purchase VSTs often automatically install into folders like VST plugins in 64-bit program files or in 32-bit program files. That's what x86 means. x86 is like the instruction code name. It just means 32-bit. And then if it doesn't have that and you're on a 64-bit system, that is 64-bit. If you're on a 32-bit system, you won't have this x86 there. In fact, you'll only have one program files folder. So that's how you can definitively tell if you're on 64-bit or 32-bit. But in the end, it doesn't really matter. And if you're using mostly 32-bit plugins, you should probably run the 32-bit mode even if you're on a 64-bit system. In a perfect world, everything would be 64-bit because 32-bit systems can only use up to 4 gigabytes of RAM, but actually maybe even less. But 64 gigabyte programs can use a lot, something like 32,000 gigabytes of RAM, which I don't know if we're going to ever reach that level of RAM needed. Well, maybe someday, 100 years later, but definitely future-proof for sure. But that aside, that's that. I'm sure some people didn't know about that. But yes, Steinberg VST plugins is the easiest place to put it. But we also have to journey into ImageLine. So ImageLine in 32-bit is just going to be FL Studio 11. And I just have all the other stuff I have. I used to use FL Studio 11 mainly. And then until FL Studio 12 came out. And that is in the 64-bit program files. But if you just installed FL Studio for the first time and it's 12, and you're on a 32-bit, and there's only one, then it's going to be in 32-bit, underneath ImageLine, which is the company. Click that. Got FL Studio 12.1 here. And you got the other folders you can just ignore. Double click. And this is why, like, there should be like a guide when you first start up the program, because it's quite complicated. But yeah, you get into here, then you go to plugins, and then VST. So VSTs is where all the plugins go. I just put them in Steinberg, and I actually had to take them out of here in order to fix a problem I had for a little bit. But you just click and drag that into here, and then FL Studio 12 can find it. As for sample packs, you got to go into Data, Patches, Packs. And what you have to do is drop a folder into here. So if you have a folder over here, let's say this is the folder. Oops. Say this is the folder. Then you just drop it in here, and it will instantly appear with